Imagine you have nothing but some basic gear, a lot of snow and a frozen lake which could provide you something to eat, where temperatures easily go down to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Staying warm is a challenge itself. I wanted to find out if I could stand these circumstances. The video you're about to see is an experiment in two ways. Number 1 was a part of actually doing the challenge. Part 2 is happening while you're watching my video. This is my very first video. You are actually going to see me in front of the camera talking to you. So I'm going to use my ability to catch fish to actually get some food, because I left everything at home. I did not take anything to eat. Besides the maggots and the worms, which I'm using as my baits, I had nothing else that I could eat. Nothing. Except that one bottle of margarine to fry my fish. But that's not really something to eat, right? While I was unloading my car, I started to wonder, what if this goes wrong? I wanted to do this trip in a long time now. And finally, I was going for it. The snow conditions were really bad. It felt like walking on thin ice. With every other step, I went through the partly frozen snow, which made it nearly impossible to get into a steady movement. I was hoping to find that one trail I saw on the map I had, but unfortunately I didn't, so I had to hike straight through the forest. I didn't have any phone signal either, but I made use of one more thing I was carrying around. A lynx had been here some time before me. I hope I get to see one someday. So, I just made it to the first little lake. I think I'll just give it a quick try and see if there's any trout in this one. Okay. I think the ice is quite thick here. I'm really hoping that I get through here with this thing. Yes. One hole, that's all. Not going to mess around too much here. See what happens now. If we're lucky, we get a fish right away. And if not, well, then it is what it is. Already here I realized one bowl of cereal for breakfast wasn't such a good idea. Let's see if there's any fish down here. I hope there's some fish here. It's not super deep. Okay, it's not deep at all. Yep. Let's sum that up. No fish in here. I don't know. Also, no fish in here. No one knows. Or at least I do not know that. And there we go again.
This wasn't a very serious attempt of catching fish. I was simply sad, hoping for a lucky punch.
That's tough. I hope I catch some fish tonight. I see so many tracks from rabbits, squirrels, birds, lynx. I don't know. This back there, if I'm lucky, that's the lake, and I can walk easily along the ice because there's like just a solid layer of ice, which makes it so easy to walk compared to what I'm doing here. Like, oh my goodness, just this last part and then it's done. All right.
The struggle I had to get up here was part of what I came for.
I can already see the lake, and that was my goal for today, reaching that lake. Then it's just walking straight across to like 1 kilometer, and back there I will try to find a good spot to set up my base. Now let's follow these rabbit tracks here. Poop. Went through here, and as you can see, up that tree. Where's the rabbit? Ah, okay. Rabbits don't climb that. I forgot. This will be interesting now. Okay. Damn it. Let's sit down. That's the lake. And I hope I am catching some fish here, because I'm really hungry. I have no clue how many calories I just burned on that hike here. Ooh. Okay.
And just like that, pulling the sled felt super easy. I crossed the lake and picked a spot near the shore, but before I started to build the shelter, I wanted to find out if there was any fish nearby.
I caught my first fish. Over there's the fishing rod. I just put it in. I went here to drill another hole, and all of a sudden this little guy was on there.
I took care of the fish and went back to set up my second fishing rod. By the time I got back to the fish, it was already frozen stiff. I still didn't know what my shelter was going to look like, but I knew one thing, that I had to improvise as usual. There was a dead pine tree that provided great firewood, and since I wanted to fry my fish, I needed a fire. When I saw these branches, I knew I was going to use them somehow to build my shelter. And just for me to see, I wanted to start the fire with a flint. But since the moss from the trees was slightly damp, that wasn't easy. I had to get some more and made sure that it was put there somehow uphill so the flame could burn upwards immediately. This time it worked perfect, and I quickly had a nice fire going. The water in these lakes is so clean you could drink it as it is. But since I heard that your body needs some energy to warm up the cold water, I decided to stick to hot drinks. I put some snow on top of the hole to keep it from freezing over. And while I was boiling the water, I started preparing the fish and realized that I had to clean the next fish before it is frozen. And just before setting my frying pan on the fire, I caught another small fish. At that point I didn't know that I was not going to catch anything else that day. The fish was really good and it felt great to eat something, but still, I did not have any shelter set up. By the time I finished my meal, there wasn't much daylight left. I grabbed my headlight and the snowshoes and started preparing my spot. I went to get some longer branches, which I could use as a roof for my shelter, where I eventually put my top over.
Good morning, you guys. What a night. Well, I'm still alive. I didn't freeze too much. I woke up like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times. It's still dark outside, but I'm happy. My shelter is still up. Didn't break. Temperature was like around minus 10, 14 during the night, even in my shelter. I mean, there was nothing what insulated it. If you check now, temperature is around minus 1, 2.
The fresh fallen snow on top of my roof insulated the shelter so well that the temperature inside went from minus 14 up to just below 0 degrees Celsius. That was actually really nice, but at the same time it made it hard to get out into the cold and put on some clothes. So I only had these 2 small fish yesterday. To make sure I get something for breakfast, I left my fishing rods up the whole night. Therefore I had to check if there was any fish on one of my rods. Number 1, nothing. I knew that at least one of these 3 rods would bring a fish. But also number 2, it left me without fish. So there was only one more rod to check. And here was again no fish on the other end of the line. While I was quite low on energy at that point, the fact that I had nothing to eat for breakfast got me super motivated, and I wanted nothing more than finding out where those fish hang around in this lake. Before I went fishing, I took the top off of my shelter and looked at what I built last night. Looking at it from the top, it somehow reminds me of a bird's nest. Here's a picture of what it looked like when I crawled out of my sleeping bag that morning. The space I had was alright, but seriously, these branches hanging into my face during the night really freaked me out a few times. I fished for about 3 hours all over the lake without any success. Finally, I got to a spot where I then managed to catch 2 fish at the same time on 2 different rods. Look at them. Not only are they really beautiful, in fact, they are delicious. And even if they were not, I would still eat them since it was already after 12 and I was really starving.
And another one. This feels so good. Finally some fish. Oh my god. I fished now for about 3 hours or something. So, this is a release. I got some food. I'm really hungry.
There wasn't much more happening at that spot after these 2 fish, but I wanted to eat something anyways. One fish, that was all I really needed to get back some energy, and now it was time to start building my igloo. Since the snow conditions were good enough to cut my blocks, I took away the old shelter completely. I was confident that I could finish the igloo that night. My first task was to even out the spot where I wanted to put my blocks. I made sure that I took away all the small branches, because who would want to have all that dirt in his bedroom? The next step was simply to mark a circle as a guideline so I see where my blocks had to be placed. And after that I could start with placing my first blocks. The first round can take some time. Once you made it all around, you have to cut your first blocks in a certain way so that your wall is getting higher with every round to come. And now I could start setting the following blocks on top of the other ones. All this took me a lot of energy and time. As I was only halfway done with round 2, I noticed it already started to get dark again. Here I go into another night shift. Thank God I still had enough battery left in my headlight. Right before I started with the igloo, a man came by on a snowmobile and we talked about what I was doing. I did not expect to meet someone else, but it was nice talking to another person. In the end, he gave me one more small fish. In fact, I was really grateful for it and could therefore keep my bigger trout for the next day, in case I wouldn't catch anything else. But not only that, the man also told me about the area and gave me a very useful information, which you are going to find out more about later. Once the wall is getting too high, you need a door to get outside. By choosing an elliptical shaped igloo, I thought I was going to save some time. Instead, it turned out to take much more time, because I sometimes had to use a pole to support the blocks. It was already late and I felt so exhausted. It took me over 6 hours to finish the igloo. At the end, all I wanted was to sleep.
Good morning, everyone. Day 3. I slept in my own igloo this night, and it was actually colder than the night before. I didn't wake up
that much. Like, I don't know, 4 times. I had to go out to pee once. This was quite annoying. Yesterday I met another guy. He came with a scooter. He told me a little bit more about the lake. He told me that the one spot I was fishing at is always quite good, and that was also where I got a decent fish. Nice trout and a small Arctic char. Actually, I only ate 2 small fish yesterday, and I feel not too hungry. This is quite impressive. The day before, well, the first day I came here, and I only had 2 small fish. So now I have the big trout left and another small fish which I caught in the night, where I just left the rod out with a little bell on it. Actually, I think of keeping that big trout for lunch or something, and just eating the small fish, because I think it gives me enough energy. Well, we will see. I first planned only doing 2 nights, so now it's actually day 3. I think I'm going to stay 1 more night, because the guy on the scooter, he told me that there is a little cabin which is for public use, and you can fire it up. There's a fireplace inside and firewood, everything there. It's only about, I don't know, 1 kilometer from here, and I think I'm going to stay another night there. Stay warm, at least for 1 night. This would be really cool. I think I'm going to stand up. I have to check if I have all my gear, because it was snowing that much, and I'm afraid I left my saw, my little axe, outside. I don't know if I can find that again. I hope I put it in my little sled. So much for that. See you later. I forgot something. I wanted to show you the temperature. It's about -2 degrees Celsius. It feels colder, actually, probably because it's more moisture in here, and it feels colder. Going to that cabin, oh yeah, that will really help. Get warm again, eat properly. So I just made it out of my igloo. You see, it's covered in snow. Here I hope to find my saw, my axe, somewhere. Hope it's still here. Now I have to get myself into my clothes. Everything is still frozen. It's not too much fun. Fuck it. Oh. Oof. Jacket, frozen and heavy as it is. I need my shoes. There's the fish, and somewhere in there is another fish. Whew. Now, after 2 nights fighting against the cold, I followed the recommendation
of the guy who came with the scooter yesterday, and he pointed out that there was a little cabin for public use, and I decided to spend my third night in this cabin. Have a look. It's really beautiful. This is little lake here. And this here is a cabin. Like there's some outhouse and firewood. Lots of firewood. Isn't that beautiful? Björn Kojan. There's a stove in here. I already heated it up. Oh, that's amazing. I love it. Let's have a look outside. There's the lake.
By being active outside in winter you definitely need a lot of energy, especially when it's cold like up here in Swedish Lapland. Energy that has to be given to your body in form of proper food. It's something I could not give my body as much as it actually would need it. I'm really happy about the fishes I caught yesterday. But it got obvious, what I ate the last 2 days was by far not enough to keep up with the conditions outside.
Delicious.
I pushed myself again to get up and tried to catch some more food. I believe it is impossible to truly understand how hard all the physical work actually felt. For every move I made, I needed energy I simply didn't have. I had to make sure I am not wearing myself out completely. Because I didn't want any backup for this challenge, I had only one option, using my inner will to make it through another day and somehow get back the next morning. The fish were not active at all, so I decided to sit inside and eat some more of the big trout. Thanks to the one who brought the lime pepper spices to the cabin. It's by far the best you can add to fish. I enjoyed a delicious piece of trout at my one-man candlelight dinner. Doesn't that look romantic?
This is also part of the tour. My inlay of my boot. It came loose. Now I'm sitting here and stitching it back together.
It took me quite a bit of time to fix that inlay. I got so tired I went straight to bed afterwards. Unfortunately, I didn't sleep very well and I got up several times. It got colder outside with every time I went over to the window to check the temperature. It sure felt great to know I had to hike back to the car in like -20 or even 30 degrees Celsius.
Good morning again. It's morning number 3. I just went out to check my fishing rods. Nothing on there, but during the night I checked as well, and just as I played a bit with the line, I hooked another small trout, which will be my breakfast. Yeah, I am actually really hungry right now, and I feel quite weak, to be honest. This is worse than I expected, and I am a little bit afraid for the way back. -25 right now, going to 26. If I imagine sleeping outside in -25 or something, I think I would have gotten in real trouble, serious trouble. So I'm really glad I stayed in that cabin here. My idea was to spend 2 nights and 3 days, but as the guy told me about that cabin, it felt like, okay, that's great, warming up and drying all your clothes and stuff, and then well prepared, making your way back to the car. By the way, I'm really afraid my car isn't starting. Usually -20 works okay, but everything below that, it's really tough, and we're going to see. I will show you. I think I'm now preparing my last fish. If I'm not getting another one, it will be my last fish. And slowly wrapping up things, getting ready to head home. Half an hour ago I was really starving. My body was like crying for food. I guess I lost quite some weight as well. It's only 3 days, but still haven't eaten much. That was it for now. Talk to you later.
I went out to check my rods for one more time before heading back to the car. Unfortunately, there was no fish on any of my rods, but as a true angler, your baits stay in the water until the very end. Unfortunately, I didn't catch another fish. I got all my stuff together and back in my sled again. Now I only had to somehow make it back to the car. Yesterday, as I went ice fishing, I noticed that my ice scoop was gone. I knew I must have lost it somewhere near the igloo. I really hate losing things. I decided to make a little detour so I could try to find it again. It was just the fact that it was snowing quite a bit when I left the igloo, so the chances weren't too good to get it back. But luckily, as I was searching near the spot where I had my sled, I found it again. I was glad that my detour wasn't for nothing.
It's only going downhill now, and I have to hurry up that my sled is not running into me. So it's mostly running right now, which is kind of funny. Yep, I'm glad nothing happened. I wasn't sure if I'm going to make it. Well, I'm still not there, but I think I can make it if it's not too much uphill in between. But I'm super low on energy, like super low. Did I mention that I'm hungry? I am hungry. I'm so hungry. Oh my god. Whew.
I didn't want to rest in between. From here on, I took it slow on my way back. It took me about an hour to get down to the snow scooter trail next to the river.
I almost made it. I'm down at the river where I parked my car. I just wanted to show you where I took the wrong turn when I went up to the lake. Therefore I had to hike all the way through the forest, off the trail, like, such a pain. Instead of walking up this way, I should have simply walked down this way, like a few 100 meters, 200-300 meters, and then there was a turn to the left where it went straight up to the lake where I wanted to go. And now I'm really struggling. I'm really out of all my energy. It's the last, let's say 500 meters, 400, I don't know, but it feels like 10, 20 kilometers when there is no energy in your body and you still have to keep on going. That is really tough. Oh my god. I guess I won't ever forget that trip. Now here's that old small bridge, which is giving me a hard time. Oh shit. So here's the last part. I'm almost at the parking. I hope it's coming on. That's all I want now. Please start. -22. Oh god. Okay. Let's wrap things up and drive home. Bye.
So, if you read studies about how long someone can survive without food, it is said it would be possible to make it for 7 and even up to 21 days if you have enough water. After this experiment, I don't want to imagine what that would feel like. It's terrible to know that there are so many people out there starving, even though we live in a world with an absurd amount of wasted food every single day. Have you ever asked yourself what you would do if we get into a worldwide crisis? What if we one day don't have access to fuel, or an actual blackout happens due to an attack? What if one day your local grocery store couldn't get any deliveries or has no electricity to cool the groceries? I believe the biggest part of us modern human beings would be totally lost, and there would be fights for the smallest things. Let's hope this will never happen, but you should think about it when you're walking through your local store the next time. We need to appreciate in what kind of wealth we actually live in. For me, this was one reason to find out how I could handle such a situation. Though you probably wouldn't end up with as little as I had. But anyways, a scenario like this could happen, and at least I would like to be prepared for it in some way, which is also why this here was not the last trip. I will be doing more experiments in the future to learn more techniques of how to survive out in nature when you're left with only a few things, or simply your bare hands and whatever nature has to offer. The fact that I have lost 4.5 kilos in 3 days tells me I'm not prepared for it yet, and I need to learn more. This has been a tough journey with lots of ups and downs, but now I got an idea of what it actually means to completely rely on your abilities of providing some food for yourself when it's winter in Swedish Lapland. If you don't want to miss out on one of the next videos, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support and see you next time.